Canto 1, the dark forest, the hill of difficulty, the panther, the lion, and the wolf, Virgil. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. Ah me, how hard a thing it is to say, what was this forest, savage, rough, and stern, which in the very thought renews the fear. So bitter is it, death is little more. But of the good to treat, which there I found, speak will I of the other things I saw there. I cannot well repeat how there I entered. So full was I of slumber at the moment in which I had abandoned the true way. But after I had reached a mountain's foot, at that point where the valley terminated, which had with consternation pierced my heart, upward I looked, and I beheld its shoulders, vested already with that planet's rays, which leadeth others right by every road. Then was the fear a little quieted, that in my heart's lake had endured throughout the night, which I had passed so piteously.
To get you to sit still for 15 minutes or more and journal. But a lot of times we don't know what to journal, where to start. So we have gathered amazing interviews for you to sift through. 3.33 million impressions. Cost $222,000. Look at all these numbers, man, seriously. But like a team of us figured out how to hone it down, hone it down, hone it down. And though the impressions went down, the clicks went up. So you're becoming anti-fragile in the process by owning your dark, owning your shadow, and then accepting it without fighting it, and yet finding the kind of wherewithal to contain it. And then, I don't know, I feel like there's something in there, but it hasn't yet been structured out. But that's kind of the future of where it's going to take us.
Because the ability to speak your truth is the bulwark against hell. And losing your job, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to where things can go when they go badly. For me, it was just preventative. It's like, this isn't going in a good direction. Well, should you take a risk? It's like, you don't have that choice. You're silent, that's a risk. Now, most people don't understand the risks of silence. I happen to understand the risks of silence because I've been studying them for 40 years.
God's got you covered. Tag somebody and let them know God's got you covered. God's got you covered, and you're coming out as gold. You're coming out of this fire. You're going to get through this, and God is going to purify us. And he said, I want you to follow the ark now, but don't follow it too close. And I was so confused.
Then, the vast majority of the cases were still in China, the original epicenter of the disease. By the end of the month, infections worldwide increased nearly 10 times, to nearly 860,000 cases, and deaths soared from over 3,000 to more than 40,000. But how did things get so bad so quickly?
God says stop. The elements have no choice but to obey him. When God says stop, the Red Sea has no choice but to stop standing in my way. When God says stop, any weapon that is formed against me has to bow its name to the name of Jesus. So I want you to insert God's name over and against whatever need you have. His name is I am, not I was, and not I will be. God is with you in this moment, not just when I get to the other side, but when God says stop, every storm has to stop raging. I wish I had an organ. I wish I had a B3. We can still have church. When God says stop, ask Lazarus what happens when God says stop. The worms had already started eating his body. The process of decomposition was already in progress. But when God says stop, when God says stop, the consequences have to be reversed. When God says stop, when God says stop, God speaks peace to every anxious heart. When God says stop, I want you to tell the terror right now, God says stop. Put your hand out like this. Put your hands up like this on an emoji and fight the devil with an emoji. God says stop. Fear stops here. You can have my finances, but you can't have my faith. It stops here. Here's the lie. God said stop. Don't give him space. Don't give him your... Calm down, Furtick. It's an empty room. Stop, 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 stop. Get some sleep in the stern of the ship, because if Jesus is in the boat, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And here's what I found out. Faith doesn't keep me from having to go through a storm. It doesn't exempt me from the challenges. We're all in this together. But I got somebody in the stern.
From 4 cases on February 20th to nearly 106,000 by the end of March. By the end of the month, nearly 12,500 deaths related to COVID-19 were also recorded, more than 3 times the number of fatalities in China. After Italy, Spain has the most COVID-19 related deaths in the world. Nearly 8,500 people died in March, and infections there jumped more than 1,000 times. The Spanish government announced a near-total lockdown on March 15th to try to curb the spread of the virus. But after 2 weeks, thousands of new cases are still being reported every day, leaving hospitals overwhelmed and the health service at breaking point from self-isolation. Over the course of March, infections in the UK went from 36 to over 25,000. And from 0 fatalities on March the 1st, the country saw nearly 1,800 succumb to the disease by the end of the month.
We're talking about very small numbers in the United States. We've all done a very good job.
That was President Donald Trump at the beginning of March, when there were 158 cases of COVID-19 in the United States. In 2 weeks, infections had risen to 9,197. Despite mixed messaging from the White House, the government did finally urge people to stay at home if they or a family member showed symptoms of the virus, and to limit gatherings to no more than 10 people.
We really want people to be separated at this time.
But in the 2 weeks following the plea, COVID-19 cases in the US increased to more than 188,000, and the death toll shot up to more than 4,000 people. President Trump backtracked from a plan to return America to work by Easter after his task force projected as many as 2.2 million Americans could die from COVID-19 if more action wasn't taken.
The better you do, the faster this whole nightmare will end. Therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th to slow the spread.
As global COVID-19 cases surged in March, life began to slowly return to normal in mainland China. The number of new infections and deaths plummeted in the country, with the majority of new cases being those imported from overseas. Officials credit the complete lockdown of Hubei province, as well as tight restrictions and quarantine rules in other cities, as being key factors in containing the virus. For many other countries still struggling to stop the spread of COVID-19, the next several weeks are crucial in determining whether April will be better than March.
When God says, stop, and they camped before crossing, and it says that. They saw the ark. Look at verse 4 again. Put it up on the big LED Bible back behind me. And zoom out and get the shot. Are all the worship leaders smiling behind me? Big smiles here. When God says stop. Now, you see this phrase where it says in verse 4, Then you know which way to go since you've never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits. That's 3,000 feet, 1,000 yards, 10 football fields, 900 meters. It's a worldwide audience. I got to get everybody in here. and it said that God, who normally comes closer, told them that the ark needed to be kept at a distance, and that's a big distance. That's way more than 6 feet. I heard of social distancing. I never heard of spiritual distancing until I read this text. And I was wondering, why would God, when he's leading his people, tell them that the ark, put it back up, the ark of the testimony, it's also called the ark of Yahweh. I am God's name. God has a name for every need in your life. God says, I am. He's a present help. So it's the ark of the testimony. How many have a testimony? So why do we keep thinking we're going to get a testimony without having a test? God said he's using the season to show us, stop expecting to have a testimony with no test. That's how we want it now. We want the pecs without the push-ups. I'm just trying to modernize it. I got nobody else to preach to. I might as well preach to myself. We want the triceps without the try. Can I get a witness from the drum riser? Hit a cymbal, Dom. Feel lonely in here.
Marshal your arguments and put yourself in order so that when someone pushes you a little farther than you should go, you can say no.
And you know what's going on now.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna first talk about what would happen if I'm not available ever again. So I'm gonna, the board will run the organization. I'm setting up my Gmail where if it's inactive for 3 months, it gets released to the board members. So you'll have all my files and my YouTube, or the YouTube. But basically I would like Annalyn to take over as the CEO, and then Aura, you would be the VP, like the right hand in command. And then CFO, there's a couple prospects. My first priority would be if you could reach out to Abe, Ibrahim, who's still on our Slack channel, to see if he wants to, get back on, and maybe Carson too. And if not them, then contact my sister, and contact my friend Alex, which I gave you the numbers for. This is for CFO, and I think the CFO is important because they're going to be really helping us with the business growth of it, because it's like we still need our numbers and our budget and some kind of business plan to legitimize what we're advocating. So when we go to people with money, they can see that we know what we're talking about. We're already showing effectiveness in terms of like the people we're influencing inside this project, right? So it's just a matter of bringing on a competent financial business person to really shape the business plan.